They call him Seatin, the man of legends.
Hey, what is up, you handsome bunch? Hello and welcome to How to Bulf. If you're probably saying to yourself, Seatin, you sound a bit ill, that is because I am a bit ill. But this boss is pretty easy, so I wanted to get out the strategy guide for it. So yeah, we're going to be talking about the tactics. So Bulf has essentially a total of 4 phases. Every time you kill Bulf, he will come back again. For a total of 4 Bulfs. So once you've killed the 4th Bulf, then he is dead forever. Well, until sort of the next week, when you come back and he's magically there again, because that's how raids in MMORPGs work. Phase 1, 2, and 3 Bulfs are very, very easy to deal with, and you most likely won't have much of a problem on those phases at all. It's Phase 4 which is the quote-unquote real challenge, but then again, even Phase 4 is pretty damn straightforward. So literally, I'd suggest like attempting this boss as soon as you have literally 20 people with 1,000 hit. You don't even need people to be that good at the game or geared, because this boss has no considerable DPS check. It has a very, very small burst check at the end, but that is about it. Even that check is super, super weak, so as long as you have people that can clear expert dungeons and hit the boss, you should be able to kill this boss. It's really straightforward. Now, before we quickly talk about the strategy, one thing I want to cover is the setup. For this tank, we personally used 2 tanks, 1 bard, 1 Pyrocon, and then we had 4 healers and a Defiler. Now, you could probably do it with 3 healers and a Defiler, or just 3 healers, but due to the fact that there is no considerable DPS check, we just overhealed it a bit, literally just for pure safety reasons and the fact that our tanks weren't that geared. But yeah, I'll type all that stuff out in the description for you lovely people to read. Okay, so now on to the actual meat of the guide. This is Phase 1 Bulf. Phase 1 Bulf is by far the easiest phase of Bulf. There are kind of a couple of core mechanics that you want to look out. There is going to be dispelling, and lots of dispelling needed. There is going to be sort of a voidling, which is placed on 3 targets. If that is not dispelled, it will start applying additional debuffs, so you want to dispel that fast. The tanks will also be getting hit very hard, and gaining a stacking debuff, which I believe stacks up to 6 times, and on 6 stacks will mind control the tank, which is something you definitely do not want in this fight. So basically, tanks just essentially alternate taunting whenever their debuff wears off. Also, he's going to be applying a stacking bleed to the tank as well. That's not something you can really do much about, you just have to heal for it. Apart from that, that is pretty much it. One of the reoccurring things you're going to see throughout the fight is that every time you, a new Bulf spawns, basically a massive kind of like swirly, icy, watery AoE is going to spawn and slowly orbit the room. In sort of the end, there's going to be a grand total of 4 of these really, really big ones, and they are slightly different from the smaller and faster ones that you're going to see at the end of the fight, but I'll explain how those work in a later phase. So as you can see, Phase 1, very straightforward. You then will have a very, very small delay before he moves on to Phase 2 Bulf. Be sure to be quick as a tank getting the aggro there, or you will see that basically there is an aggro reset every time he spawns again, so he will literally go for the nearest DPSer, as he did there with Seatin. So you got to be sure to keep your wits about you, essentially. So there are essentially kind of really 2 main mechanics. This phase is all about the healers. Now, there's going to be a debuff applied called Concussive Force, and he's going to cast this fairly often, anywhere between every 8 to 15 seconds. So basically, if Concussive Force isn't dispelled, when he casts Whispers of Death, so when Bulf whispers words of pure madness, if that hits anybody with Concussive Force, and it's just going to randomly target about 6 to 10 people, I believe pets can also be damaged by this, it will one-shot them. So it is basically all up to the healers in this phase to absolutely dispel like crazy. That is the only job. Now, one other thing that you're possibly going to see in this phase, and this is fairly random, sometimes they activate, sometimes they don't. There are 2 ice giants kind of on the left ledge to us. Now, what you'll start to see is AoE just being thrown all over the place on the ground, and basically you want to try and dodge this where you can, because if you get hit by it, you're going to take a considerable amount of damage. Now, if you get hit by a Whispers of Chaos and also sort of an ice thing at the same time, an ice AoE from the Giants, then you can potentially be RNG one-shot, because those AoEs work in a way that you can't always reliably move out of them. Sometimes they just appear and deal damage instantly, and there is nothing you can do. So sometimes people will be one-shot, so we like to stay fairly spread out if we see that the Giants have activated, just to make sure essentially that, you know, we're not all going to get one shot from the AoE, and to minimize the chance of RNG here. So that's why we're all fairly spread out instead of stacked up. Now, this is the third phase. Bulf, he's been up for about 10 seconds now. He's very, very easy. Basically, there's going to be another debuff thrown out, no more concussive force, that reduces maximum health. For good measure, we always like to sort of keep on top of the dispels there, so just keep on dispelling that. There's also going to be the mind control buff, debuff from phase 1, which you'll see is currently on painful. That needs a single target or can be clipped by the AoE dispel. About 80% into this phase, some Giants on the ground are going to spawn. You'll basically want a secondary tank to just pick them up and tank them. You can easily solo tank the boss in this phase, so basically we just have one tank deal with the Giants and the other tank deals with both. So yeah, it's pretty easy, not much going on in this phase at all. But it's what happens after this phase that really kind of heats up the fight. What your raid wants to be prepared for now is the third Bulf dying. Now, as soon as the third Bulf dies, what is going to happen is essentially about 10 seconds after he dies, a very, very large void is going to open up, as you're going to see in a minute. Now, anybody standing inside of this void, including the Giants, but not certain NPCs, unfortunately, anybody standing inside will take a stacking health reduction debuff. This actually can be cleansed. So the tank that was tanking the Giants wants to ideally tank them inside of this big void area. As you can see, their health is being zapped at the moment. It can go down to like 1%, and then when they're on 1%, everybody fires off abilities. You can pre-dot them there so that they just quickly fall down, and that the Giants and their damage is no longer an issue. Also, just something to bear in mind, if any sort of hostile enemies apart from the Giants are inside of that AoE, what they're going to do is they're actually going to gain a stacking buff that increases damage done and also heals them for 5% of their maximum health every second. So in this phase, it's the responsibility of one tank to literally pick up all the ads that are coming out of the void and tank them just outside of the void. Try and position them there so that they are dealing minimal damage, because as these ads start to rack up in numbers, and literally they will keep on spawning until Bulf dies, the tank who is tanking all of the ads is just going to be getting hit harder and harder. So this can be quite problematic, especially on lower geared tanks. Another reason why we sort of go a bit overboard with the healers, just for absolute safety reasons. Apart from that, literally this phase is fairly straightforward. Now you're going to see rifts opening up. There was just one to the right there, and if a rift opens up, what it's going to do is it's going to spawn this very fast moving AoE, which is basically a smaller version of the slower ones that you've spawned. Basically the visual indication is that rift opening up about 1 to 1.5 seconds after you see that visual indication. Then one of these swirly things is going to come out and start dealing mega damage. The group needs to react really quickly to that, and that is essentially how you succeed in this phase. Apart from that, there is going to be a fair bit to dispel. You're going to have the void link, you're going to have the single target cleanse. As you can see, it's on myself at the moment. I believe it's called Insidious Whispers if anybody's looking for a macro there. But you've just got a ton of cleanses, occasional tank damage, you've got the damage from Whispers of Chaos, but literally most of the damage apart from the Whispers of Chaos damage is avoidable if you are fairly alert. You know, you do have the Giants damage, and sometimes it can cause a RNG one-shot combo, and those AoEs do move very fast, so it can be quite difficult, but that's really about it. Now, kind of the big check here is that at 5%, what he's going to do is he's going to attempt to run back into the void and heal himself up and get his strength back. So essentially what you need to do is you need to save all your bursty cooldowns for about 7%, and then just go absolutely ham on the boss. And if you see he starts running back now, and if you get him down to 2%, then he despawns, and GG, you win the fight. So that's a pretty small and retarded DPS check in my opinion, but nevertheless it is there, so you need to be aware of it and tank him slightly away from the rift. That's it for the Bulf guide. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. Take care and have an absolutely great day.